God uses you to teach a narcissist a lesson they'll never forget. There are moments in life when you realize that your presence is not just about you. When the struggles you've endured, the conflicts you faced, and the people who have tried to break you were not mere accidents, but part of a divine plan. You don't always see it in the moment when you're in the middle of the storm, when the narcissist in your life is gaslighting, manipulating, and twisting reality. It feels personal, key, cruel, and deeply unfair. But then one day you look back and realize you weren't the victim. You were the lesson. You have the instrument God used to expose them, to force them to confront the truth they spent their whole lives running from, not because you fought them, not because you sought revenge, but because you stood in your truth. And that was the one thing they never expected. The narcissist thrives on illusion. They are the master of deception, the architect of their own false reality. They construct a world where they are always right, always the hero, always in control. They need people to buy into their performance, to mirror back the image they have created of themselves. But what happens when they encounter someone who refuses to play along? What happens when someone like you, placed there by God Himself, stands firm in truth? They crumble, because narcissists can only thrive in darkness. They need deception. They need people who are too weak, too confused, or too afraid to call them out. But when God sends you into their lives, you don't even have to expose them. They expose themselves, and that is the less. And they will never forget, one, you were never an accident. You were the catalyst. Nothing in God's plan happens by chance. Every encounter, every trial, and every relationship carries a divine purpose. Even the ones that left you broken. You may have once believed that your presence in the narcissist's life was a mistake, that you were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, that you were a casualty of them and an agent. But the truth is far greater than that. You are not a random target. You are not a mere bystander swept up in their storm. You were the storm they never expected. A narcissist's entire world is built upon illusion. They carefully construct a reality in which they are untouchable, admired, feared, or pitied, but never questioned. They surround themselves with enablers, people who feed their delusions, who play their roles in the carefully written script they have crafted. They manipulate, deceive, and control, ensuring that those around them reflect back the version of themselves they so desperately need to believe is real. Their power is not in their strength, but in the compliance of those they ensnare. They survive by bending reality to fit their narrative, by silencing the voices that challenge them, by ensuring that no one ever forces them to look too closely at the cracks beneath the surface. Then you arrived. At first, they thought you would be like all the others, eager for their approval, easily controlled, willing to accept their version of reality without question. They believed they could mold you into the role they had written for you. But something about you was different. Maybe it was the depth of your spirit, the discernment in your soul, the quiet strength you didn't even know you possessed. Maybe it was the way you questioned the things they had never been forced to explain, the way you refused to surrender to confusion, the way you held onto the truth even when they tried to convince you it wasn't real. From the very beginning, they sensed it before you did. They saw in you what you had not yet come to understand in yourself. You were dangerous to their illusion. You were the one thing they had spent their entire life avoiding. Because where others had accepted their deception, you hesitated. Where others had doubted themselves, you listened to the quiet whisper of truth. Where others had bowed, you stood firm. And the moment they realized you would not conform to their expectations, their fear of you began. You were never meant to be another pawn in their world. You were never meant to reinforce their delusions, to reflect back their carefully curated image, to be another nameless figure caught in this cycle of destruction. You were the catalyst not because you fought them, not because you exposed them, not because you sought revenge, but because you simply refused to be consumed by their deception. You did not wage war against them, yet your presence alone was a battle they could not win, because the one thing and not just cannot tolerate is someone who sees the truth and refuses to unseat. God placed you in their life not to be destroyed by them, but to reveal what had long been hidden. You were not an accident. You were not a mistake. You were a divine disruption sent to expose what had stood in darkness for far too long. They thought they could control you, that they could rewrite your understanding of reality, that they could reduce you to nothing more than another reflection of their false self. But in the end, it was not you who was remade. It was them who was undone. And that is why they will never forget you, not because you loved them, not because you hated them, not because you sought to hurt them, but because you with a lesson they never saw coming. You are the moment their illusion cracked, the fracture that could never be sealed, the quiet, undeniable, a presence of truth they could never again escape. While they worked tirelessly to shape the world around them, they never considered that one day they would encounter someone who could not be shaped. And when they did, the world they had built around themselves began to collapse. You are not just another chapter in their story. You have the ending they never expected to the narcissist illusion shattered. A narcissist's greatest power is not in their words, that manipulation, or even their control. It is in the illusion they create and the belief that others will uphold it. The entire world is a carefully constructed lie, a fragile ecosystem where they are the hero, the victim, or the untouchable force of authority, but never the villain. They do not just tell lies, they are the lie. Their existence depends on the deception that others are too blind to afraid, or too broken to challenge. But illusions only hold power as long as they are believed. They thought you would be like all the others. They thought they could shape your perception, twist your reality, and make you see them through the lens they wanted you to use at first. They were confident they had done this before they knew the steps of the dance, the rhythm of control. They studied you searching for weaknesses. They tested you subtly shifting boundaries, carefully planting seeds of doubt. When they flattered you, it wasn't kindness, it was a hook. When they gave, it wasn't generosity, it was a action. When they seemed to care, it wasn't love, it was an investment in their control over you. But something was different this time. The tactics they had always used, the methods that had worked so well on others, did not work the same way on you. Maybe at first they did. Maybe you tried to rationalize their inconsistency, is to justify their contradictions, to believe their words over the discomfort that stood deep in your spirit. Maybe you doubted yourself, questioning your own instincts rather than questioning them. That is what they wanted, that is what they needed. But no illusion can withstand the presence of truth forever. Slowly, the facade began to crack. He started to see the patterns, the cycle of charm, control, and cruelty. You noticed the discrepancies between what they said and what they did, the way their apologies were not real, only another form of manipulation. The way they shifted blame so skillfully that you almost carry the weight of their sins as if they were your own, but deep down something, and you refuse to surrender to the deception. No matter how much they try to twist reality, something inside you, something placed there by God, held from, and that was the moment everything changed. See, the narcissist illusion was never as strong as they believed it to be. It only worked when others played along, but when you stopped playing the game itself fell apart. That is why they fought you so desperately, not because they loved you, not because you were special to them, not because they needed you in any real human way, but because you were the mirror and they could not bear to see themselves reflected back without the layers of deception to protect them. So they lashed out. They tried to pull you back in using guilt, shame, and manipulation to reestablish their control. When that failed, they resorted to anger, accusation, and punishment, hoping that fear would do what deception no longer could. But by then, it was too late. You had already seen the truth. That's the truth is seen. It cannot be unseen. This was never about losing you. This was about losing the illusion. And that is why they will never forget you, not because you hurt them, not because you fought them, not because you sought to destroy them, but because you refused to be destroyed by them, because you were the moment their illusion shattered, because in their desperate attempt to break you, they only revealed who they truly were, and once you saw it, they could never make you unsee it. If this resonates with you, type "I see the truth" in the comments. Let it be a declaration that you are no longer deceived, no longer controlled, no longer bound by their illusion. The truth has set you free. 3. Your strength exposed their weakness. A narcissist's survival depends on illusion. Their power is not real power. It is a performance, a carefully crafted act that only works as long as the people around them play their assigned roles. They are masters of deception, convincing the world that they are superior, invincible, and untouchable. But beneath that carefully constructed exterior lies something fragile, something weak, something so deeply insecure that they will go to any lengths to hide it. Their entire life is a war against exposure. Every action, every manipulation, every cruel word or calculated compliment is part of a strategy designed to keep people from seeing the truth. That without control, they have nothing. Their confidence is false, the superiority is paper thin, and this strength is borrowed from those they are able to manipulate. They do not truly stand on their own. They stand only as long as others bend. Then you came along at first. They thought they could mold you like all the others. They studied you, searching for the places where you are vulnerable, testing the edges of your identity to see where they could break you down. Maybe for a while they succeeded. Maybe they made you question yourself, made you doubt your own reality, made you believe that their approval was something you had to earn. Maybe they convinced you that they were stronger, smarter, more capable, and that you should be grateful just to be in their presence. But what they did not anticipate was the strength that had been placed inside you by God Himself. Because while they spent their lives building an identity that required deception, you were rooted in truth. While they needed control to feel powerful, you were already powerful without it. While they needed to create a false sense of self, you were already whole. You did not realize it at first. You may have believed their lies. You may have given them your trust, your kindness, your patience. You may have fought to understand them, to love them, to be what they needed you to be. But no matter how much they twisted reality, something inside you remained untouched. A core of truth, a foundation of resilience, a whisper in your spirit that reminded you who you were before they tried to redefine you. And that is where their illusion began to crack. It wasn't an argument that broke them. It wasn't a confrontation or a moment of revenge. It wasn't rage or retaliation. It was something far more devastating: your refusal to be remade in their image. The moment they realized they could not control your mind, your spirit, your identity, The moment they saw that their tactics no longer worked, their fear began. Because the thing they feared most had happened, you had seen them, not the version they presented to the world, not the grand image they had carefully curated, but the real them, the small, insecure, desperate child inside, the one who needed constant validation, the one who could not bear to be questioned, the one who only knew power when it was taken from someone else. They spent their lives hiding this truth, ensuring that no one ever saw it, ensuring that they were always the one in control. But you saw, and once you saw, they could never make you unsee it. That was the moment they lost, not when you left, not when you fought back, not when you finally found the strength to say enough. They lost the moment you realized the truth, that they were never strong to begin with. Their power was not real. Their confidence was not real. Their superiority was not real. Everything they had convinced you of had been a lie, and once you stopped believing it, they had nothing left. They raged because they were powerless. They manipulated because they were desperate. They tried to break you because they knew they could not rebuild themselves. And that is why they will never forget you, not because you wounded them, not because you abandoned them, not because you hurt them, but because you saw them. Because you refused to bow to the false god they had made of themselves. Because you walked away unbroken while they were left with the one thing they had been running from their entire lives, the truth. For the moment they knew they had lost. A narcissist never expect to lose. They live in a world of their own making, where they are the master of every outcome, the author of every story, the force that bends reality to their will. They do not just manipulate situations, they manipulate perception itself. In their mind, they control the way they are seen, the way events are remembered, the way truth itself unfolds. They do not anticipate consequences because they have spent their lives avoiding them, shifting blame, rewriting history, ensuring that no matter what happens, they remain untouchable. But then came you. At first, they were certain they had you exactly where they wanted you. They had studied you, understood your patterns, learned your weaknesses. They knew how to make you question yourself, how to plant just enough doubt in your mind to keep you from ever fully seeing them for who they were. They had done this before many times. They believed you would react just like the others, that when they withdrew their affection, you would chase them, though when they invalidated your emotions, you would silence yourself, though when they twisted the truth, you would reshape your own perception to align with theirs. They were wrong because what they failed to see, what they could never have understood, was that God had placed something inside you that they could not break for a time. Maybe you didn't realize it. Maybe you went through the cycle. They had so carefully designed the confusion, the self-doubt, the desperate attempts to prove your worth to someone who would never acknowledge it. Maybe you lost yourself for a little while, believing that if you just tried harder, loved deeper, sacrificed more, they would finally see you. But something inside you, something divine, something unshakable, refused to surrender completely. And then one day it happened. Maybe it was a single moment, a sudden realization when the weight of their deception became unbearable. Maybe it was a slow unraveling, a gradual awakening as their inconsistency became too blatant to ignore. Either way, the day came when you saw them, truly saw them, not as they wanted to be seen, but as they really were. He saw the fear beneath their arrogance, the emptiness behind their grandiosity. He, the deep knowing insecurity that no amount of manipulation could ever truly cover. You saw that their power was never real, that their strength was borrowed, that their control only existed as long as you allowed it to, and in that moment they knew they had lost, not because you walked away, Though eventually you did not because you fought them, though you had every right to not because you exposed them, though the truth always has a way of rising to the surface they lost, because you no longer believed in the illusion, and without your belief, without your compliance, without your willingness to keep their world and intact, everything they had built began to collapse. A narcissist's greatest fear is not rejection, it is irrelevance. They do not fear being alone. They fear being alone with the truth of who they are. They do not fear your absence. They fear the fact that in the end your absence proved that they were never as powerful as they thought. They do not fear losing you. And that is why they will never forget you, not because of what you did, but because of what you refused to let them do to you. You were supposed to be another pawn in their game, another piece in the puzzle. They had designed another source of validation to sustain their fragile sense of self. Instead, he became the one thing they never expected, the lesson they never wanted but could never escape. You were the reckoning they thought they would never have to face. You were the truth they had spent a lifetime running from. You were the undeniable proof that in the end, they were never as powerful as they had convinced themselves they were. And that is why no matter how much time passes, no matter how many new they manipulate, no matter how much they try to rebuild the illusion, you will always be the one. They could not break the one who saw through them, the one who walked away without looking back, the one who left them standing in the wreckage of their own making, forced to face for the first time the reality they had spent their entire existence avoiding, and that is a loss they will never recover from. 5. The lessons they will never escape. A narcissist believes they are untouchable. They have spent a lifetime convincing themselves that they are always in control, always superior, or was able to bend the world to their will. They do not see themselves as flawed, nor do they believe they will ever be held accountable. In their mind, they are beyond consequences, immune to the weight of their own actions. But what they never anticipated, while they could not possibly have foreseen, was you. You were supposed to be just another pawn, another source of supply, another person who would submit to their reality without question. They had done this before many times. They knew how to study people, how to find weaknesses, how to exploit emotions with surgical precision. They believed they understood the depths of human nature, that they could manipulate anyone if they applied the right combination of praise, punishment, and persuasion. But what they did not realize was that God had placed something inside you that they could never touch at first. They thought they had one. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your patience for submission, your forgiveness for permission. They assumed that, like all the others before you, you would become ensnared in their way, whirled endlessly trying to please them, endlessly doubting yourself, endlessly seeking the approval they would never truly give. They believed that they had you under their control. But then something happened that they could not comprehend. You saw them not the version they showed to the world, not the grand illusion they had carefully crafted over years of deception. You saw the real them. You saw the patterns, the contradictions, the cracks in the mask they wore so effortlessly. You began to notice the way their words did not match their actions, the way their love was conditional, the way their apologies were nothing more than manipulation disguised as room. What you saw, the hollowness behind their arrogance, the fear behind their cruelty, the deep and unrelenting emptiness that drove them to control others in the first place. And once you saw it,